the president says it's all a rigged witch hunt.
What the president should say, President Putin, look, you can deny this, but my intelligence community now, a grand jury, has concluded that these people have been involved in hacking into our system, trying to alter things. Whether they were successful or not is not being resolved at this point. Number two, I need to have you understand, if you do this again, there are going to be even more serious consequences. You get no relief from these sanctions that we've imposed as a result of Crimea and what you're doing to destabilize Ukraine. You've been trying to destabilize the Baltics as well. You've been messing around in the European elections in addition to that. And so, no, we can't have a better relationship until you change your behavior. If you do, then I want to have a better relationship with Russia. I would like to have one. They're an important country, but not when you engage in this kind of behavior.
Well, this kind of great power relationship, obviously very, very important. But even today, knowing what the president knew, because he had been briefed by the Justice Department, he still said today, I think, something along the lines of, there'll be no Perry Mason moment here, right? Putin needs to be confronted quite directly on this. And again, in my view, I wouldn't go forward with the meeting, and I would take the kinds of steps we should take to respond to this.
Any chance Putin could cancel?
I think it would depend on what the United States does. It doesn't look to me like we're going to take any action between now and then.
What do you think?
A meeting benefits him. He's on the world stage for the President of the United States. And so we have legitimized Kim Jong-un by having a world forum for him in Singapore. We will legitimize President Putin, notwithstanding all of the misbehavior he's engaged in. And so I think it's in his interest. If he wants to retaliate against us, he might cancel it. But I think it works to his advantage.
Essentially I think that's right. Essentially what he's seeking here, and this will all work to the achievement and the advancement of Russian strategic goals. Divide the United States from Europe, sow continued discord, divide the politics in our country, upset our democracies, right? And essentially what Putin seeks here, Wolf, and I think, which is why I wouldn't do the meeting, because I think it's all to his advantage, is costless absolution for these steps he's taken.
They want to sow dissent here in the United States, and there's plenty of dissent right now. William Cohn, thank you very much for joining us. Tom Donilon, thanks to you as well. Our special coverage continues right now with Ana Cabrera.
Hello, I'm Ana Cabrera. We continue our breaking news coverage. New indictments in the Russia investigation on the eve of President Trump's sit-down interview with the Russian president. Just moments ago, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein dropped a bombshell announcing that 12 Russian military officers have been indicted for trying to interfere with the 2016 election.
11 of the defendants are charged with conspiring to hack into computers, steal documents, and release those documents with the intent to interfere in the election. One of those defendants and a 12th Russian military officer are charged with conspiring to infiltrate computers of organizations involved in administering elections, including state boards of election, secretaries of state, and companies that supply software used to administer elections.
Now, you may remember back in July of 2016, the president actually goaded Russia to hack into Hillary Clinton's emails. Here's a reminder.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
Well, incredibly, according to this indictment, Russian hackers were listening and they acted, targeting Clinton's campaign emails for the very first time just hours after Trump dared them to do it. And really important to note here, in the context of Trump sitting down with Putin, that the indictment claims all 12 defendants were acting in their official capacities as part of the Russian intelligence agency, the GRU. Joining us now, Evan Perez, CNN's justice correspondent. Evan, what more can you tell us about this indictment?
Well, Anna, this indictment has a lot of great detail, incredible detail. It lists the names of these Russian military intelligence officers. It lists the units that they worked for inside the GRU, which is the Russian military agency and military intelligence agency. And really, it goes into great detail into what was an orchestrated campaign using computer servers around the world. They were using cryptocurrencies to try to hide their tracks. But it appears that the FBI and the U.S. intelligence agencies had some kind of window. They could see when they were communicating and with whom they were communicating, which computer servers they were using as they were trying to not only infiltrate the computers of the Democratic National Committee, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, members of the Hillary Clinton campaign, and then they tried to disseminate those emails, those stolen emails, through a number of places, including one, of course, was WikiLeaks, which is not named inside this in this indictment, but we know based on the circumstances that is exactly what they're talking about when the indictment talks about the organizations that were being used to spread some of these emails. As you mentioned, the president is going to be sitting down with the Russian leader in a couple of days. We know from the president and from the Russians themselves, they say that this did not happen. They had nothing to do with it. This indictment gives the president, if he wants it, a lot of ammunition for him to say, look, we know exactly who did this. We know where they are and who they're working for, and we'd like you to turn them over so that they can face justice in the United States. We don't know, obviously, whether the president will be so inclined to do that, Anna.
We will see in the coming hours and coming days. Evan Perez, thank you for that update. Joining us now to talk more about all of this, CNN legal analyst Paul Callan, a former criminal prosecutor. Paul, again, these are Russians that we're talking about who've been indicted, 12 of them. They are members of the intel community in Russia. Will they ever see their day in court here on American soil?
Well, you know, Anna, they are high-ranking members, presumably, of the equivalent of the Russian CIA. It's called the GRU over there. And will they see their day in an American court? It's really hard to say. How do we get a hold of them? Certainly, Russia is not going to extradite them. But there will be an impact because they will be restricted in their ability to travel into countries that have extradition treaties with the United States. So there's a real penalty that they have to pay. The U.S. can also use its financial system to make sure that they don't use U.S. banking and other things that people rely on, even from foreign countries. So there's a penalty to be paid to be under U.S. indictment, even if you are not in custody.
So much to talk about. Let's start with the timeline here and this key moment during the campaign when Mr. Trump, then candidate Trump, called on Russia to find Hillary Clinton's emails. And now, according to this indictment, that very night, these Russians attacked.
Go back and find the exact hackers, where they were from. They used many ways to try to hide the payments and hide the sources and make it appear it was Guccifer and it was some American crowd. Robert Mueller's to be commended. It means we're at war with Russia. Russia is not a competitor. Russia is a foe. There is no difference between what happened in hacking computers and getting information and using it than going into the Watergate and burglarizing the Democratic National Committee's headquarters and using that information. This is exactly parallel. The Russians have interfered with our elections. They have committed a crime. They have stolen material. They are our foe, and the president should not look at them as a competitor who we should get closer to. We need to continue our sanctions, and we need to be strong in our insistence that this not occur again and that the perpetrators be handed over for prosecution.
So now you and other Democrats are calling on President Trump to cancel this summit with Putin. What would that accomplish?
Well, I don't think there's anything the summit can accomplish right now. Putin has consistently said, was not involved in the hacking of your computers or the involvement in your elections. And the president has said, I believe him when he says that. Well, the president can't believe Putin. Putin is a notorious liar. Once KGB, always KGB. He has lied about murders of political opponents. He has lied about so much. I met with Russians just last week in Berlin in a bilateral meeting between American Congress people and Russia Duma people. I was so frustrated with the Duma members constantly lying about the plane being shot down over the Ukraine and claiming it was only social media. There were no facts. When the Australian and Dutch governments had just come out with reports of direct links to the Russians and the Russian weapon that shot that plane down, they denied the deaths of 297 people. They denied the killing of Nemtsov. that there are higher-ups that haven't been brought to justice, when we know it just wasn't those Chechens, there were higher-ups. The Russians lied. That's their MO. For the president to meet with a liar, he cannot do it in any kind of foundation of accepting what he says, that he would do anything. He's as untrustworthy as Kim Jong-un.
Look, we know Trump was briefed on this indictment earlier this week, and yet here is what he has been saying about Putin and Russia during his overseas trip. Let's listen.
Ultimately, he's a competitor. He's representing Russia. I'm representing the United States. So, in a sense, we're competitors. Not a question of friend or enemy. He's not my enemy. I know you'll ask, will we be talking about meddling? And I will absolutely bring that up. I don't think you'll have any, gee, I did it, you got me. There won't be a Perry Mason here, I don't think, but you never know what happens, right? But I will absolutely, firmly ask the question.
The president also continues to call this a witch hunt. But look, if he meets with Putin, if he doesn't cancel the summit, and Putin continues to deny Russia's election meddling, which you expect, what should President Trump's response be?
President Trump's response should be, we know you did it. We want you to turn the 12 people in Russia over to us to be tried. They'll have a presumption of innocence to see if they can interfere with our elections, and if they did, they should have justice meted out to them. And if he